Hi, this is Andrew Bridgewater from andrewbridgewater.com with another in my series of Your Mental Health videos. And this one is about the psychology of mental health. Now, I touched on this in the introduction video, and if you haven't seen the introduction in the previous videos, it's well worth catching up on those just so that this kind of sits in a better context. But what I was talking about is the sense that pretty much all of the model today is looking at mental illness. This is the paradigm that conventional medicine follows. Somebody has a problem, the symptoms seem to represent the problem, and something is prescribed to deal with the symptoms, but doesn't actually get to the underlying problem. And I'm seeing the same thing in psychology, totally. You know, I get The Psychologist every month, and the number of adverts for remedies or therapies to deal with mental illness is staggering. And what I've come across is a very different approach, which actually starts with mental health. And we're actually all born mentally healthy, whether we realise this or not. Have you noticed toddlers don't need therapy? Something happens to us in the kind of conditioning, the growing up, and we kind of unlearn the mental health that we're born with. And there are three fundamental principles that have been used to describe the psychology of mental health. And these principles are rather like the principles of electricity and gravity. They work whether you understand them or not. And therefore, if what I'm saying doesn't immediately seem to make logical sense, just sit with it and kind of live with the feeling, because you don't need to know how electricity works, for example, to get the benefits. You just flick the light switch. Similarly, you don't need to know how gravity works to avoid falling off a tall building. These are fundamental, and they were brought to the world by a gentleman called Sydney Banks in the 1970s. He had an enlightenment experience. And the first principle he calls the principle of mind. This is rather like universal intelligence. There is a universal energy behind life that has our backs. And when you realise that, it's incredibly profound and creates an enormous sense of well-being and gratitude, because life knows better than we do very often. And that's not to say you just kind of kick back and let things happen without actually making any attempt to manage your life or create something from life. But the fact is that we often sit with a head of unhelpful thinking, which prevents life from kind of working its magic. And if you want evidence of the universal energy behind life, just look at the seasons. Look at the way that cuts seal. Look at the way that planets don't align. Look at the natural creativity of life. And I think you'll agree with me, there's something going on there. There is an intelligence behind life, which actually is in you. That spiritual intelligence is in all of us. And when we allow it to come through, life is just so much better. The second fundamental principle that Sydney Banks talks about is the principle of consciousness. It's consciousness that's allowing you to experience this video right now, and hopefully to make some sense of it. Consciousness allows life to unfold for us. It brings life to life, if you like. Without consciousness, we wouldn't experience life. And the third fundamental principle is the principle of thought. And thought is the creative principle. It's thought that brings our creativity to fruition. Nothing can happen other than through thought. Think about it. All the major inventions that have ever have come through thought. Somebody had an idea and they made it happen. Your feelings are a direct barometer of your thinking. So they're like two sides of the same coin. Whatever you're feeling right now is a direct result of the thoughts you're having. That doesn't mean to say you have to change those thoughts. It just means to say that you have to realise that you are creating your experience of life moment to moment through the principles of thought, consciousness and mind. And when you understand and start to have an appreciation of how this is working, as I say, you can kind of drop out of the negativity, because you realise that it's self-created. Your life is a virtual reality of your own creation, and yet we've been led to believe that the outside-in illusion is what's creating our life. You know, our life is impacted by what other people do, by situations, by circumstances. It's not. It's all coming from within. And when you start to really see this, it is literally life-changing. So I'd urge you to look more into the 3 principles and begin to experience what's actually going on in your own life through those principles, and you'll be amazed how much more resilient you'll feel, and just how your mental health will change. It certainly has been very, very helpful for me, and I now know for sure that I won't go back into depression and anxiety again, because I understand how I'm creating my personal experience. So this is Andrew Bridgewater, just with a brief video on the psychology of mental health. I'll be back with another video very soon, and you can find out more about me, my books and my online courses at andrewbridgewater.com. Bye for now.